Hi, my name is Rashima Williams, and I am a singer in the commercial music technology soundtrack. My research project that I am going to be presenting is on the topic of making a reimagined movie soundtrack with string instruments. The three deliverables I am going to be presenting today are two cover songs and an original composition by me. So first off, we're going to start with making a soundtrack. Firstly, we have to describe what is a soundtrack. So a soundtrack is any featured sound or music in the background of TV, films, video games, etc. The process of making a soundtrack goes like this. First, the composer meets with the guidance and collaboration of the film director and producer. This is where they map out the sound design that they want to take the form into the film. So this is where they meet to take on the dialogue, the music, sound effects of where they would be, where they would place it, where they want it to be more dramatized or not. Secondly, after the composer meets with the directors and figures out what they want to do, then they hire an ensemble of musicians. So this can either be an orchestra, a big ensemble, or small ensemble, or maybe even a solo musician. The recording session tends to happen towards the end of the production rather than the beginning because usually the composers want the full view of the TV show or movie that they are going to be producing so that they can know the exact feel of what they're going for. So the two main important factors of when I were considering with recording my sessions were first the tension of the string, so where I would be placing my bow and how heavily I would be placing, and second, the length of which I will vibrate to give the sound more dramatized feeling or not to give it more of a subtle feeling. At the bottom right side of the screen, you can see one of the mic placements that I had throughout making one of the songs, which is Dandelions, to record for one of the projects. So now I'm going to be playing samples of what I did for my reimagined sounds. And these are my resources. Thank you.
Sampling methods for R&B and hip-hop. My name is Ira Valeda, and for my research project, I use different sampling methods to make songs for R&B and hip-hop. I'll be discussing how I made a sound library to produce my 3 songs. Sampling vinyl. I sampled a song using a vinyl record and imported it into my session. Here's a sample without any manipulation.
Something's on my mind. Mother dear, the boy keeps me crying.
Now here's the sample with added effects. I used my own sample drums and incorporated live instrumentation. Here's the full mix.
Keep on knowing you. Whatever to keep me close to you.
Samples used in a mic. Here are some of my samples using professional mics. Sampling using iPhone mic. Here are some of the samples I took with my iPhone.
Go first.
Using Sampler in Alchemy and Logic X Pro. I made my other 2 songs using only samples with no live instrumentation. I use Logic's Quick Sampler and Alchemy to load in my samples. Here's an example of how I turned a tom I recorded with a professional mic into a kick drum in Quick Sampler. Now this is a violin sample I recorded on my phone. Load it into Alchemy. Here's song 2 after mixing.
And it's reality, no unreal things for me. I'm in love, can you see? No fairies.
On my final song, I tried incorporating a lot of percussion sounds I sampled from my phone. The melody consisted of heavy manipulation of loaded samples. Here's my final song.
I can be your lady always, always and forever. Always, always, always and forever. Always, always.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jasmine Christian, and today I'll be discussing spatial audio. So first and foremost, what is spatial audio? So it's essentially a form of digital surround sound wherein the origin points of different sounds can appear to envelop you from all directions. So the objective of today's presentation is what is Dolby Atmos? How does it work? What is binaural spatial audio? The details of my project, along with my final thoughts on spatial audio. So what is Dolby Atmos? Dolby Atmos is a surround sound technology that is front biased and goes beyond the traditional sound projection. It does this by implementing height channels to the surround sound setup. With the addition of these height channels, the sound is effectively made three-dimensional. And you can experience this via your headphones, along with the regular traditional speaker setup. So how does Dolby Atmos work? Well, Dolby Atmos places sound objects of mono and stereo files into channel beds. So these channel beds can be basically your regular speaker setup, surround speaker setup, and then it can also be via binaural audio. So what is binaural spatial audio? Basically, what binaural audio and spatial audio is basically, it mimics the way people hear, and then the sound waves are then processed and created to create 3D audio that mimics the way we hear. All right, so the overview of my project is I did 3 pop songs in Dolby Atmos, and I used Logic Pro. Each song was composed of stereo and mono files. I did 1 song that's a remake completely from Korean to English. I did 2 other songs that are 2 creative renditions. So I did Human Nature, Michael Jackson. I did Everything She Wants by Wham, and I did Ditto by New Jeans. So my approach to mixing for this one was basically following the regular, stereo mix setup and like how I would go about mixing in stereo, but actually kind of adding height with the stuff that was more aerial sounding to kind of give more of an immersive experience along with it. So my final thoughts. So how is spatial audio transforming the music industry? Spatial audio is transforming the music industry through basically being available to consumers. Because 20 years ago, we weren't able to experience immersive audio via our headphones. And not everyone could afford to have a surround sound setup. So through binaural audio and video games, through that advancement, we are now able to experience surround sound via headphones.
Hello everybody, my name is Michaela McInnes and my research project is entitled Bringing Back Soul. I have 3 separate compositions, the first one being an improvised jazz piece by fellow FAU students. The second composition is by Bill Withers entitled Ain't No Sunshine, and I have an FAU alumna vocalizing on that. I also have the third composition, also by Bill Withers, entitled Lean On Me. All of these compositions were tracked by me, they were mixed by me, they were mastered by me, and it's basically just to bring back the soul, just as the title says, and just, get a little groovy as if you're in a live jazz club or you're in your room cleaning or something like that, but just getting some groove in there. Hope you enjoy.
Anytime she goes away, and I know, 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 I know.
Lean on me. If you're ever down and out or you don't know what your next move is. Sometimes in our lives we all have pain. We all have.
Hello, my name is Aaron Dolan, and I'm a senior here at Florida Atlantic University studying commercial music technology. Throughout the course of my studies, I've been exposed to a variety of recording and production techniques for use with a range of instruments across multiple genres and styles of music. Being a rocker and a bit of a rebel at heart, I was admittedly most interested in learning how to record and produce rock music, namely electric guitar, bass, vocals, and drum set, for use in my future endeavors as a producer. Upon learning the proper methods for doing so, it became clear that there would be a relatively high financial barrier to entry when it came to creating high-quality versions of this type of production, and was left with the impression that it would be nearly impossible to do so in an in-home, low-budget setting. This was disconcerting to me, and is why, for my research project, I decided to take a bit of a deeper dive into how to make an in-the-box product sound more like the real thing. Limiting myself to amp simulators, plugins, and sample drum sounds, it became my mission to create a pop-punk experience that would leave even the most well-trained ears questioning whether I used a high-end Marshall or my Scarlett and a DAW. My intention was not only to prove to myself that it was possible, but for others to realize it as well. To make it known that bedroom producers aren't just limited to pop, hip-hop, and ambient style productions. We can rock out with the best of them, and we can have fun doing it too. While this proved challenging at first, upon doing further research, I was able to uncover resources that would lead me to understand the similarities as well as the differences between working with the digital and analog versions of these instruments. For example, an amp simulator doesn't have actual tubes and will inherently behave differently than its real-life counterpart. However, same or similar settings can achieve a same or similar result, as long as you keep in mind that you're not driving real tubes. Drum samples, for instance, tend to have some sort of processing done to them already, and will therefore need to be treated a bit differently than raw sounds. Probably the most challenging aspect was finding an appropriate space in which to record vocals. While the university's facilities were open to me as needed, I felt as though utilizing them would almost be cheating, as I won't have access to them after I graduate, and recording such an integral part of the project in a high-quality space seemed disingenuous and counterproductive to its point. I found that my car served as a viable alternative, if, albeit, not ideal. In overcoming these obstacles, I found that I not only became a better producer, but a better musician as well. What you're about to hear was all played, recorded, engineered, written, arranged, and mixed by me from right here in my bedroom. Thank you for listening. I hope you get as much enjoyment from the results of my work as I did creating it.
Hello everyone. So for my research project, I wanted to do an analysis of rap music around the US and really do a deep dive into 3 of my favorite artists, reproduce their songs, and understand the perspective they were in both lyrically, musically, and etc. So again, this is my research project in fulfillment with my bachelor's degree in commercial music. So the main question that I had to answer was, how does location affect the music? And it kind of led me into these further questions of wondering what factors really impact the lyrics and melody. So for the 3 main topics I want to discuss, it's location and society, the artist and the genre, and then the melody and lyrics. So the regions specifically are Florida, Atlanta, and Chicago. Those are where the artists that I chose are from. And these are some main points that really impact the music and the lyrics especially that these artists create. Atlanta and Chicago both struggle with a lot of high crime rates and violent kind of nihilistic society. And Florida is just kind of a variety of different styles. Also, there's a rise of gang activity in Florida, which is unfortunate. But so moving on, that is really what impacts these artists. So Rod Wave is a soul trap artist from Florida. Lil Baby is a trap artist from Georgia. And Juice WRLD is a emo rapper from Chicago, Illinois. And these are just some main points about them. So the genres were a big study of mine. So I went into trap, drill, emo rap, and soul trap. For the sake of this presentation, I'll just be going over trap, emo rap, and soul trap. So for the melodic elements, we have in soul trap, it's a lot of R&B and trap flavor. It's a lot of vocal performance, singing, and that kind of thing, with acoustic instruments and synthesized trap drums. Trap music, however, is most all synthesized with instruments and drums, and it focuses a lot more on the lyrics and drum production. Emo rap fuses hip-hop and emo, so there's a lot of nihilism in the lyrics, indie production with guitars and distorted 808s, and sing rap with the use of auto-tune. Going into the specifics on the lyrics, so we have Fading by Rod Wave, which is really about his struggle with his newfound fame, and he feels like he's getting a lot of fake love and he doesn't know how to interpret it. And he does that all over, guitar and piano, and he sings about it a lot. Lil Baby and Lil Durk, okay. Lil Durk is from Chicago. He's a drill rapper. I thought that was something to note as well. And this is about them flexing their fame and fortune, but they still complain about a lot of the same troubles they had growing up in the trap. So then we have Juice WRLD, All Girls Are the Same, and he's talking about his problems with drugs and mental instability as a byproduct of his heartbreak, which is a lot of, again, emo setting of nihilism and that kind of thing. So I hope that everyone enjoyed my presentation. I wish I could get more deep into these topics now, but I do not have the time today. So thank you very much and have a great day.
For those of you unfamiliar, Bossa Nova is a subgenre of samba music created in Brazil in the 1950s. Bossa Nova created in a time of popular jazz music and consequently adapted some of the harmonic aesthetics of jazz, leading to a tight association between the genres. My goal for this project was to create new Bossa Nova that combines modern elements of vibey instrumental lo-fi tracks with traditional Bossa Nova compositions. This first track, Micro Bossa, features a minimal 2-chord progression, but with the traditional bossa beat, with synth pads and an electric piano, but also more traditional style Stan Getz saxophone. track 2, Venus. I went more traditional in this one. I tried to emulate the jazz piano bossa style of João Donato, but I also recorded a live string quartet to emulate the dramatic strings featured in Luis Bonfa tunes. Number 3, Sunset Cove, is a little bit more upbeat. I wanted it to be a little dancier, incorporating samba rhythms. Estrelita features a flute melody. I wanted this one to have a nice nostalgic feel, so I returned to Getz and Gal Costa for inspiration. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope you enjoyed. I want to thank the people who played on the tracks.
Hello everyone. Today I am going to be talking about scoring music to nature footage. I will be using the nature film I made for my research project called Sea Breeze. And what I did was, I built the entire project from going out and filming all the footage, then going through all the footage and editing them into segments, then I scored the entire film, added a narration over the segments, then mixed and mastered. When it came to scoring the film, it is important to note that all music was electronically sampled and that there were no live performances of my compositions. They were all from various sample libraries. So one of the major challenges with scoring music to any film is that the style and character of the music must serve the film in a way that appropriately conveys a certain mood. I have 2 examples that show how different styles of music scoring can dramatically change the way a scene is interpreted. Have a look at the same scene I scored twice of these tortoises eating. The first one is light and airy. This next one is more active and aggressive. Another challenge I faced was not being able to find a sound sampling that I was looking for. And after searching through every sample library I had access to, I decided, well, why don't I just make my own? I was looking to create a sound effect that would produce a jarring and ugly sound. Listen to the sound I recorded of me closing a squeaky iron board. Then I sampled that to get this. So when it came time to score the scene with the invasive iguana, I knew this would work perfectly. If you would like to see the film in its entirety, it will be released soon on my YouTube channel, as seen here. On the last note, tomorrow is Earth Day, so please, do your part and take care of the planet.
My name is Laura Castro, and my project is storytelling through immersive multimedia. I decided to focus on sound design through the use of Dolby Atmos and ambisonics. Sound design is the combination of dialogue, sound effects, and music in film. Sound design is important because it enhances emotions, it creates moods, and it adds realism to film. I decided to do 2 film projects in Dolby Atmos. Dolby Atmos is a technology that enables the user to create an immersive experience for the listener. The way that it works is that there are beds and there are objects. Beds are the sounds that will be played throughout all of the speakers. This could be the music track or ambient tracks, such as wind and rain. Objects, on the other hand, are the sounds that will be manipulated in space. This works through a 3D panner. The 3D panner, shown here, enables the user to move the objects front to back, left to right, and even add elevation. In the Dolby Atmos renderer, shown here, the user is able to oversee all of the sound effects and how they are moving in space. My last project was done in ambisonics. Ambisonics is different from Dolby Atmos. Ambisonics is meant to create a sphere of sound around the listener. This is done through higher order ambisonics. The orders, shown here, define the detail of capture for the sphere. The higher the order, the more detail there is of the sounds in the sphere. In order to work in ambisonics, the user has to get plugins. I got plugins that enabled me to pan the objects around in the sphere. In this panner, shown here, the user is able to control the angle at which the sound is at, the distance from the listener, and the elevation. Both Dolby Atmos and ambisonics need to be rendered to binaural audio in order for the public to listen to them. What binaural audio is a decoding of the spatial sound effects to be able to be heard through headphones while still maintaining the data of space. For 2 of my projects, they are MP4 files that can only be shared through that MP4. They will not be able to be posted on YouTube. For the ambisonics mix, you are able to listen to that project in YouTube. Thank you for listening to my research and have a wonderful day.
Hey, my name is Rudy LaFrance. I am a commercial music technology major, and my research project is entitled Guitar-Based Instrument Imitation Techniques. So the overall goal with this project was to emulate other instruments with the guitar samples as a source. And so this first song I wanted to do was Round Midnight, composed by Thelonious Monk. This version I did was rearranged by Dave Wolpe. And then for my trumpet sound, here is a raw guitar sample, just one note. And then after importing that sample into a sampler and then transcribing the MIDI notes, here's how it sounds like before processing. And then here's how it sounds like after processing, so some compression, EQ, reverb, distortion, etc. You know, now it doesn't sound as weak. Now it sounds like it has life. And here is the final production with everything else added. All right. And then the second song I wanted to do was the Avengers theme song composed by Alan Silvestri. And so here is a violin sample that I made using a violin bow on my acoustic guitar. And now here's that same sample imported into a sampler and then with the MIDI notes transcribed with reverb. And I actually used this sample as my horn, not my violin, but a horn. So after some trial and error, I'm like, okay, this sounds like a decent horn sound. So I processed it a little bit, and here's what it sounds like now. Sounds way better. And then with everything else added, all the instruments, here's the full production. All right, and then the final song, this is an original. I call it Trust That I'll Rise. So I have a transition that I made, and first off, I'm going to play this raw sample of a guitar slide. And then with some processing and copy and pasting that sample like 15 times and messing with pitch and all that, here's what it sounds like after. And then adding that with some arpeggiators that I also made with guitar samples. Here's the entire transition. And in a full production, here's what it sounds like now.
Trust that I'll rise. Yes, I will. Just believe in me.
And that is all the time I have. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Danilo Mina, and for my RI research project, I chose to write and produce original music for the following 3 videos, of which you will see and hear snippets of. The hotel scene from No Country for Old Men, the subway scene from 2019's Joker, and one of the most iconic thrill rides at Disneyland, Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. So when I began working on this scene, my main goal was to create a spaghetti western type vibe that perfectly matched the intensity on the screen between Javier Bardem, who plays the villain, as well as 2 of the main heroes. I ended up featuring a full string section, some clean electric guitars, timpani, and piano.
So this is what I'll offer. You bring me the money and I let her go. Otherwise, she's a cop.
When I began scoring this scene, I wanted to write a piece that not only would sound something like something you would hear on the film soundtrack, but would also portray the Joker as a misunderstood hero that always felt out of place. I ended up featuring a full orchestra along with piano, which you're about to hear a little bit right here. And last but not least, the only thing that I had to do when scoring this video was make sure that the music sounded like a fun, fast train ride through the Wild West, because that's exactly what this ride is. I ended up featuring piano, drums, tuba, cello, bass, accordion, acoustic guitar, banjo, and a live fiddle track, which was recorded and played by yours truly. And so here is a little bit of Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. And that concludes my project.
Good afternoon, viewers. My name is Rafael Robles, and for my final project, I challenged myself to take 3 different approaches to music production. My goal here was to improve my versatility as an audio engineer and producer, and not simply stick to just one facet of my abilities. I did this by fully recreating an existing track, producing a song someone else wrote, and making my own original record. For the first of these challenges, I decided to replicate The Adults Are Talking by The Strokes. The goal here was to make an identical clone of the track, or as close as I could possibly get. For the most part, the guitar, bass, and vocals seemed pretty straightforward, but the newest challenge for me was recreating the drum machine loop that opens the track and rides beneath the rest of it. Here's what that ended up sounding like in comparison to the original. I did this by using Logic's stock drum synths and tweaking them as I needed. I also had to sample me thumping a chair on the ground, and I threw that into Logic's quick sampler to add to the drum loop. All I had to do for the rest of it was record the instruments and mix it. The main signal processing I used to shape the sound includes EQ, compression, reverb, delay, and a ton of saturation. Here's a clip of the end of the track. For the second part of this project, I decided to collaborate with Hoot Wisdom artist Danny Prieto. The best experience I gained from this part of the project was learning how to take someone else's idea and bring it to life as a refined song. We basically started from scratch. Danny brought in the song idea. Our Hoot Wisdom group started editing lyrics and song structure, we added a bridge, and we made a demo that sounded like this.
God, I swear I thought I saw you driving in your blue Mercedes.
Then, I took the vocals from the demo and programmed a whole new instrumental arrangement for it. Once I had a fleshed out arrangement, we hopped into the studio to record the final vocal takes. Our boy Jason added live drums later, and then I mixed it, and it ended up sounding like this. For my final track, I decided to make a fully original lo-fi record, which you've been listening to this whole time. I started by making a simple chord progression that I programmed into Logic, then I added some percussion and synth bass. Later, I added a simple trombone loop, some more ambient synths, a fun lead synth, and placed tape emulation over the whole thing. Here's the end of the track. Thanks for watching, guys, and I hope you enjoyed.
Welcome to my senior project presentation. My name is Gabriel Milano Palacios, aka Ervis. My goals for this project was to make something I could expand upon after graduation into a full-length album that I can release track by track. So with that in mind, I thought about which albums I admire and what made them so special to me. Albums that use seamless transitions, melding of multiple genres, and mixing acoustic and electronic elements in unique and groundbreaking ways. Albums like all of these. The main albums I wanted to emulate production and lyrically wise were Hypochondriac and Vertigo. These two albums spoke intimately through the emotional delivery of lyrics, personal experiences, and general feelings associated with the before-mentioned genres. Song form-wise, this is my love letter to Vertigo, making heavy use of the traditional verse-chorus form, but finding ways to keep it interesting, like changing the lyrics in the second chorus, changing the production behind the second verse. Some key elements I wanted to incorporate into my project production-wise was guitar-centered tracks. This was tough for me as I don't play guitar, like at all, so I had to turn to a resource I've never used, which is Splice. So let's take a look at the reference tracks versus my tracks. And then this is my track. Our next reference track is technically two songs, but it's about the transition between these two songs. Next up, this is my track. From here. In conclusion, following this, I will flesh out a few of the songs that I still need to touch up on. I will also focus on creating transitions between these songs. And I also want to have an overall theme through similar instrumentation, lyrical content, and spoken word clips that hint towards a larger narrative. Thank you for listening.
Hi, my name is Preston Nichols, and I did my research project on opening a recording studio called Dream Audio Productions. To get started off with the demographics, I wanted to pick the best city to open this recording studio, so I went with the 4 major cities: New York City, Los Angeles, Chicago, Miami. Out of these, I created a pros and cons list, kind of mixing in a bunch of different factors. Miami seemed to be the best option out of these. It was the perfect combination of genres of music that specialized. We have a lot of pop, rock, hip-hop, Latin music, which is a great market for a recording studio. It also wasn't too saturated with not too many recording studios and not too few to where it'd be hard to get started out. Moving on to the design. This was really important because it's the first impression you give off as a business. So I did some psychology behind different colors, and I decided with black, white, and blue. Blue's been proven to set a genuine connection of trust between customers and the company. It's also a very elegant and modern color. It's used in a lot of technological businesses. You see Facebook, Twitter, a lot of social media uses the color blue. It just invites a lot of creativity. Studio layout, I decided to split it up into two separate studios. I have a smaller and a large studio. Both are equipped with monitors, microphones, headphones, speakers, soundboards, all of that. The smaller studio is going to be a lot more intimate for the artist and producer. It's going to have a separated vocal booth. The large studio is going to be used for rehearsal spaces. It's going to be for larger acts, bands, orchestras, larger ensembles. It's also going to come equipped with stage lighting, perfect for any rehearsals that people can use for performances. Marketing strategy is really important when setting up a business. So social media marketing is used a lot in this generation. We're going to have a lot of Instagram advertisements, Facebook, TikTok ads, a lot of footage in the studio that can be used to invite more creatives. Networking is really, really important in the music industry, especially making connections with other musicians and kind of spreading that out, especially in your local city. Promotions can be used as marketing as well. First-time discounts, special offers for new clients, loyalty rewards for people who book multiple sessions, and referrals. So the services that we're going to provide are, of course, recording services. We're going to have mixing and mastering, songwriting, musicians for hire. So basically, we're going to have a list of freelance musicians local to the Miami area. This includes songwriters, producers, instrumentalists, any kind of musician that an artist can book to help their project. In the larger space, I'm also going to have live events, so music jams, live concerts, songwriting sessions, and even outside events that can be hosted to kind of invite more collaboration. So this is the foundation of Dream Audio Productions. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Child Martin. I am a commercial music major with a concentration in business, and this is my presentation about jazz in the 40s. So a bit of an introduction about how the 40s were, World War II. It was during that time, it was around the end of World War II, /middle. There were a lot of technological developments. One of the most notable ones is the microwave. A lot of these technological developments came from the war because of it, but then after the war ended, people were trying to find a way to use it in a more practical, day-to-day life kind of way. The civil rights movement was also, I guess, beginning. It wasn't at its peak or height, but it was definitely a movement. And then there were a lot of artists, like musical artists, migrating from Europe to America because of the war. And yeah, so some of the artists that I will be talking about, well, that I did research on, was Nat King Cole, Ella Fitzgerald, Frank Sinatra, Johnny Mathis, and Billie Holiday. There was no, it was a bit of a particular reason. I wanted to write about African American artists and their experience in the 1940s and in the music business industry, along with African American female artists, which is why I just wrote about Ella Fitzgerald and Billie Holiday and their experiences as well. So a bit of expanding on what I said previously. I also wrote about it because I love jazz in the 40s. I chose these 5 artists in particular because they were also some of the biggest artists then. And it was a great excuse to write about Johnny Mathis because he's one of my favorite artists of all time. So thank you.
Hi, my name is Donovan Pennant. I am a commercial music business major at FAU, and my project was about the history of jazz guitar. A lot of how I covered things were starting all the way from the 1920s all the way up to current. Starting with the 1920s, it was where big band jazz and also regular jazz in general, for American anyway, was started. And for electric guitar had not really been invented yet, or it was extremely new. In fact, wasn't able to actually do anything until 1935. And most guitarists that were around, for example, Charlie Christian, Wes Montgomery, Django Reinhardt, Joe Pass, and Kenny Burrell were all born within this time frame. But most of them, with the exception of Charlie Christian, were not active. Within this, like I said, electric guitar didn't exist until around the middle of the Great Depression and the beginning of World War II. Fun fact for that, banjos were actually used in substitute of them because both their twangy sound and their distinct cut through the rest of the band. Throughout that time period, they were all still relative. They were all considered mainly rhythm instruments, much like it is now. Usually hasn't really changed too much from back then, and hasn't really had a reason to change to now. 1950s and 70s is where a lot of the jazz guitarists were active. So Wes Montgomery was at the near end of his career. Kenny Burrell had probably been teaching at the UCLA director of jazz. Joe Pass had been performing for a couple of years, probably about to release his first album. Django actually by this point was at the tail end of his career and at the tail end of his life as well. And like I said, Wes Montgomery had been around for about 20 years by this point. And by that point, most times there were just quartets and quintets. So Wes Montgomery would not be performing with a full piece orchestra. He would be performing with maybe 3 to 4 people, and everyone else in this list would be doing the same. Late 1970s to current, jazz became much less mainstream, and from that result became two genres: fusion jazz, who was basically made by Miles Davis and Herbie Hancock, and smooth jazz, which was a split from fusion. Most of the others by this point, Wes Montgomery, Charlie Christian, Django Reinhardt, a lot of them by that point had passed away, but a lot of those who were still around and were still the younger age of their lives, like George Benson, Kenny Burrell, a lot of them were still around and were still playing, and most of them weren't really just playing jazz anymore. Most of them were playing. Some played fusion, some played smooth jazz. A lot of them played both, and some of them played none of. And most of them, if not all of them, played just about everything, because they had to become more versatile as time went on.
Hello everyone, my name is Jonathan Salgado Jr., and this is my RI Commercial Music Research Project. I'd like to begin by telling you a little bit about myself. First, I'd like to start off by saying that I'm a violinist who composes. My main sources of inspiration and joy come from many things, like heavy metal, art, movies, TV, and anime. My main focus in life is to make a living doing what I love, and I love many things. But for now, we'll stick to the musical aspects. Touching up a bit on the project, we in the commercial music composition track had a fairly self-explanatory final project. We had to write music. This started off last semester of fall 2022 with weekly mock-ups, demos, tiers, and hours of composing, recording, and mixing. My project includes 3 original compositions entitled Fallen, What's Mine, and Haven. Composition 1, Fallen, is a symphonic metal piece that portrays the loss of oneself. The concept of this piece was that of a fallen angel. Through the introduction of the storm and beating drums in the beginning, I wanted to set a path of despair that would transcend into a triumphant melody that pushes and pulls as life does itself. I spent a great deal of time relearning why I love metal music so much and why I have so much respect for the artists who create this music, because this was no easy undertaking. Composition 2, What's Mine, is also a symphonic metal piece, but qualities within this composition pave way for a more energetic and upbeat work. The main inspiration for this piece came from a video game quote that says, "What's mine is mine." Although this can be interpreted with greed, my vision in this quote is that you yourself have to work with determination and purpose to manifest your desires. Simply put, This piece serves as a reminder to work hard for what you want in life. Composition 3, Haven, is an orchestral work featuring piccolo and vocals. This composition is an ode to my dearly departed companion Joker. My intention with this piece was to process a bit of sorrow I still carried. I wanted to say goodbye and learn to live on. I feel like I accomplished that within this piece.